Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our November LinkedIn Live. I've got to tell you, I am joined by the big guns today. We've spared no expense for this one. We've rolled out the big guns when it comes to how to map your network. So, without further ado, let me get the big guns to introduce themselves to you. Michael, Top Gun. Let's start with you.
Gosh, what a welcome, Dean. Thank you very much. I hope now I'm not going to disappoint the audience. Michael Moran, Chief Executive and founder of 1080. And I suppose, hopefully, my specialist subject being helping people find new jobs using networks. That's my expertise.
Marvelous. And Neil, no less a Top Gun, I might add.
Oh, that's very kind of you, Dean. So my name's Neil Munns-Jones. So I do three things, what I call my three C's. I do consulting. I'm going to talk about that today. Coaching. So I'm a coach with 1080. And I think the reason I've been picked is, I'll just hold those in my book. I wrote The Reluctant Networker back in 2010. And so I give a lot of talks about how to network. And I've been freelance 20 years. All my work comes from networking. But as the title of my book suggested, I'm by nature a reluctant networker. I've learned how to do it, and I really enjoy it now.
Brilliant. Right. Thank you for that intro, both of you. So without further ado, we'll go straight into our first question. And I'm guessing this is a question that quite a few people will be thinking about. We know what a network is, but when it comes to mapping it, so the first question on the screen, what is it? What is actually mapping your network? So Michael, I'll go back to you to kick us off on this one, if I could, please.
Well, thank you, Dean. And I suppose today most people associate LinkedIn as the repository of sort of networking connections. The big issue, and it's a good place to hold your network. I mean, you can hold it in a little black book or on a spreadsheet, but the connections on LinkedIn is a good place to hold it. The problem for most people, I'm going to say, is they're going to have accumulated a lot of people over a period of time. And I think the stat is the average person holds, say, 350 to 500 connections on LinkedIn. And being realistic, that's far too many people to manage. So I'm going to say mapping your network is really understanding who the key people in your network is. And I have this sort of three criteria I use. How well do I know this person? Have I invested in this person? And I'll come back to that as we go through. And lastly, do they have power of influence? AKA, if they make a call on my behalf, will the recipient will take it? And I maintain you probably need at least between 30 and 50 people who meet that three criteria, because these are the bedrock of the people that can help you either A, source a job, or B, if you're setting up a business, become your future clients. What do you think, Neil?
Yeah, look, pretty similar. Definitely the mapping, who is in there. Interesting as well, where are they? Because what we've noticed, people do move around quite a lot. I mean, they've always moved around, but maybe more so now. And so me and my colleagues, we will occasionally do a check of our LinkedIn contacts, and we do, oh, blimey, I didn't know they were working there now. At our age, also, some of them are in the retired bit as well. So I think checking it, knowing where they are. To your point, Michael, how important are they, both in general, but also to you? So how have you built that relationship? And then how do you contact them? Is that clear? And I guess the other bit just to think about is, don't just think about your external networks. If you work in a big company, your internal network can be just as important for that next job.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, guys. And I think for me, when listening to you both speaking, it becomes quite apparent that we've got a sort of an immediate network, the network that's in front of us that we see regularly, and something like LinkedIn, you see the same people coming up on your feed fairly regularly because they're the people that you've probably got most contact with, but it's everybody else, and they're the people, as you say, Neil, might have moved on to something else, might have retired, might be doing different things. And therefore, to come back to what you were saying, Michael, about, have I influenced them or have I invested in them? It's also their role, their influence has changed, and we may not be aware of it. So that might be one benefit of mapping our network, but I'd like us to try and explore, as I've lined up the question on the screen there, what are the benefits of it? So if I'm sat there watching today and I'm thinking, okay, I've got a bit of an idea of then what mapping my network is, why should I do it? What's in it for me? Neil, I'm going to come back straight to you on that one.
Okay. So I think
you're going to refer to a particular page in your book at this point, or does that?
no big sell. I think. There's a fairly accepted statistic that something like 70% of jobs get filled through networking, not through advertising. So if you're looking for a job, in addition to doing all the looking for jobs, applying for formal jobs, I absolutely would say you should network as well, because you might find your job through them. But also, if you get an interview, doing the networking helps you'll have more information. And the great thing with networking while you're in job search is those connections have value long after you've got the next job. Whereas if you invest all your time in just headhunters, if you don't get the job, it's a bit of a waste of time. So it works for jobs. As I said, I've been freelance for 20 years. All my work, except for one keynote talk, has come from somebody that I or people in my network know. And I love what I do. I have 20 years being my own boss. If I hadn't become a good networker, I wouldn't be able to do that. I'd be back at work. So it's good for finding a job. It's good for finding projects. But the benefits of networking are so broad. So my eldest son got his first job through one of my networks, and it was in lockdown. And for me, helping him get his first job, and he's now on the career, onwards and upwards, is just brilliant. And it's I think we just mustn't be too transactional about what we want to get out of our networking. Kind of look up and look out.
Okay, brilliant. Michael, what's your thoughts on the benefits?
Well, I was going to say, to back up what Neil just said, that if I like 1080 and we sort of have 80 active corporate clients currently, I think we did count 78 of which came out of our networks, either work with us or were recommended. So actually, we don't get business through LinkedIn or through social media. It's all the power of the network. I'm going to say, see your network as your eyes and ears in the marketplace. So absolutely, in terms of opportunities that come up, or particularly when headhunters are doing their research, they will go to their network, and hopefully that intercedes with your network, so people start popping your name in the frame. So that's the first thing. But I'm going to go slightly further. I'm going to say it isn't just about your next job. It's about using your network to further your career. So is your network aware of your career destination, your career intentions? Have you invested in that network? And probably most importantly, is what you're trying to achieve consistent with what people say about you when you're not in the room, aka your personal brand? So that networking is an opportunity to build credits at the bank with people who will help you, but equally to influence them in terms of your brand and your aspiration. And what I've discovered over time is it's not something that comes back immediately to you. You have to pay in. You have to help other people. That's the essence of networking. But if then they're on message and they see something which they think is appropriate for you, they'll work. It's also a really valuable source of market intelligence. The ability to understand what's going on there, what's new, what's happening in the marketplace. That's your network. But and I think you said, Dean, it's not a transactional thing. It's a living organism. I always used to say to people, it's a little bit like having a garden. You've got to nurture it. You've got to water it. You've got to put fertilizer on it, because over time it will blossom for you, but it's not an immediate thing.
I think building on that is, so a lot of people start to do a lot of networking when they're looking for a job, and the key, just building on what Michael said, is don't think once you've got that job you don't have to network anymore. You keep going. You might have a bit less time, but there's lots of time-saving ways, like using LinkedIn, where you can keep in touch with people. And that's where the benefits that Michael's talking to is about this consistent. I talk about it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of things from what you both are saying there about, to use your gardening analogy, Michael. I think it's also about, who's helping you to nurture your garden, and who within your network are you helping with their garden. It's very much a reciprocal thing. And I would probably say that for myself, I've benefited from that approach, because that's really how my work with 1080 has come around, from how from that continued contact with network, with with yourself, Michael, in particular. So I think if we've got sort of good idea of the benefits, and I really like this idea of it's not transactional, it's it's very much a relational thing, is I guess that really what we need to help people understand is, well, okay, well, how do I do that then? How do I actually go about mapping my network? Michael, if I start back with you on this one, if I may, please.
Okay, and I say we're specifically addressing the issue of how do you map your network. I always advocate this little tool whereby you go into LinkedIn, you download your connections into a spreadsheet, and you go through it. And actually, to bear out your point, it's always very helpful to do that on a regular basis, because it does identify where people have moved. Typically, it will tell you what their name and their job. And certainly, if they allow it, they'll also have their contact details. But then I segment the network according to how well I know this person, and I score them out of 3. I've known them for 15 years. There were 3. Secondly, what have I done for them? Have I invested in them? And if you think back, Dean, to you and I, initially at one stage you were my client, so therefore, surprise, surprise, I owed you a debt of gratitude for giving me business. I kept in touch with you, and then as things changed, I was then able to help you. It's a really good example of this sort of this relationship. And lastly, the power of influence. And this is very subjective, I accept. So if they make a call on my behalf, will the recipient take it? And what I've discovered over time, I always say to people, I think you need between 50 and 60 people in that frame. I know them well. I've invested in them. They have power of influence. Because a third won't help you, disappointing as it may be, but they won't. A third would like to help you, but can't at this moment in time. And a third will be the people who make the referrals on your behalf, i.e., so you need a minimum of 20. And to go back to your point, Dean, if you're coming into the job market, you really do need those 60 people at the start. And that's why, if you're thinking about moving in the next 12 to 18 months, building your network to help you do that's really important. And one further thing, and this is experience telling this, sometimes I'm thinking some of the people at my top of my list, I know them well, I've worked hard with them, they are influential, just don't help me. And yet, I go down the list, and periodically people who I knew less well, who maybe haven't done too much for them, and I didn't know how influential they are, have been very good at giving you business. So what I'm going to say is don't rule them out, but use that system, segment the network, and have a group of people who you are going to help them deliver, help them develop, find things to do to help them, either professionally or personally. And that's how you build a network.
Brilliant. Thank you. Neil.
So I think, to Michael's point, I've had similar experience when I went freelance. I drew up my list of who's going to give me work. And if I look back on it after 10 years, about half of them had, but there were a load who hadn't. And then there were some people who weren't on the list because I really didn't think, I had a great relationship, and I did get some work out of them. So that is an interesting point. And so I guess I would also say it's good to have your core, but cast the net quite wide. And so one of the things that a former colleague of mine, when he went freelance, he did one of those mind maps. So he sort of put himself in the middle, and then he put in each of the nodes sort of his different jobs where he'd worked, and his school and his uni, and then from there he sort of mapped out, okay, and he then found a load of other people that he hadn't actually come across. Most of them are on LinkedIn, which is great. So you then connect with them, and then you can go on the people you may know, because they start to see, oh, you went to this school or that uni, or you worked at, British Airways, or wherever it is, and then you can start to find more people that you know. So I would certainly do that. And then my segmentation is similar to Michael's, and I have 4 criteria. So one is, are they decision makers? Because obviously they're good people to network with, but there are not many of them, and they're all too busy to spend a lot of time with you. So you might have many of those. I then do think about, are they good networkers? So do they understand this give and take and referral? And then I have what I call my business friends. So those are the people that I've worked with in the past who, to Michael's point, if they called up, would the person take the call because they go, I know Neil. And then I have former classmates and colleagues. And so the business friends and the former classmates and colleagues are usually similar. And so the more boxes that people tick, they're the ones that I would filter into my 60 or 40 or 20, whatever it is. I wouldn't limit it to 60, but having a few is definitely, you need a critical mass.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Neil, just to go back on that, the 60 number I pick is, I think getting to 60, 70, 80, it's just too many people for you to stay in regular contact with. So that's why I did the 60. And I also have one other golden rule: only network with people you like. If you didn't like them in the first place, no matter how influential they are, do not go there. So, and I suppose one of the things we're going to talk about is often, and your book, The Reluctant Networker, very often you meet people who I've not spoken to Neil for 10 years. I'm going to feel awkward when I re-establish contact with him. They'll know I'm looking for a job. And I get that. Yeah, it can feel awkward. But if they like you and you like them, it's always an easy conversation. I always say to people, look, if Neil called you up after 10 years, would you say, don't speak to me? No, you wouldn't, would you? You'd be really grateful that Neil had called you. So, yes, you do have to get it there for a bit. And that's how I take Reluctant Networks to the next step. It's about networking with people you like. What do you think, Neil?
Well, I put a plug for my book on page 88. Tip number 6 is it's never too late to get back in touch with people. And it's so, and I came out of this because my wife, she stopped work for a few years when we had kids. And then when she went back to work, she was doing they won't remember me. Why would they, want to talk? And I was like, no, just go and talk. And they were exactly that. Because they were good relationships, they were like, oh, it's so good to hear from you. How have you been? And she was pleasantly surprised. So it's very easy to talk oneself out of, they won't remember me. Why do they want to talk? We are humans, and humans are naturally collaborative. People want to help, particularly if you're out of work. I've been out of work 3 times. I like to help people, but you've got to make it easy for me. And I think that is the nice thing about what we're suggesting with network. You don't have to network with the people that you don't particularly like. There's enough wonderful people out there who want to help you, and focus on them.
And I think earlier on, Michael, you made a point about personal branding, and I think this is where this loops right back into it, because actually, if you've got quite a good personal brand, people may have been looking at what your presence is on social media, so therefore the gap of that time isn't as great as you might think. But also, it's as you say, if they remember you and they liked you, then why wouldn't they want to have a conversation? And also, we've done those sorts of things for other people and helped other people along the way. So therefore, people remember that. They remember the small acts of kindness or things that you said along the way, even if we've moved on from that. So I think that's important. Before I go on to the next question, Alison has sent in a question on the comments that I just want to put onto the screen, because it's all about, how do we do it? This is a great link into that. And Alison says, is there any protocol about reaching out when you're looking for support in your job search? What do we think on that one? I can see you nodding or reading, Neil. So I'm going to take that as you're ready with an answer.
I was going to go, Michael, you're the expert on the app placement stuff. Is that a protocol? But I guess I would say make it easy for people to help you. So I did have a call in lockdown with the son of a family friend, because he was desperate for work. And so very warm, friendly, how are you? And I said, so what are you looking for? And he said, oh, I'll do anything. In terms of jobs, and I'm like, well, if you say you can do anything, I can't really help you because I don't know where to start. Make it easy. So the rule of ideally you just do one thing. This is the job I want, maximum 3, and then people go, oh yeah, I know somebody. Let me make that referral. So make it easy. And then the second one is people don't like to say no. So don't put people under pressure you need to reassure them. You're not expecting them to have a job and that they've got to say, no, I'm sorry, I haven't got a thing. So you want to reassure them, look, I just want to have a chat, get your advice. Maybe you could refer me on some people. So yeah, a couple of thoughts.
Okay, Michael, what's your thoughts on that one?
By the way, Alison, it's a great question. Yes, so I do have a protocol. There are 3 things you do on a networking call. In the first instance, to recognize it's about them. So you're going to spend time asking questions about them and finding out both professional and personal details. And what you're looking for are things that that can help that person. So first of all, it's about them. The second thing is, and this might be a bit cheesy, you say something nice about them. Don't be disingenuous, but you say, what you always liked about them, or you respected them, or they were well known in the industry. Say something nice. And then thirdly, this is to Neil's point, you ask for advice. You're not asking for a job. You're telling them in jobs that this is my elevator pitch, and you say to them, so if you was me, what do you think I should be doing? Or I noticed that you used to work in such and such firm or in that sector. What advice would you give me how I make that introduction? And you take them down a path, hopefully to a position where they say, why don't I take your CV and make an introduction? But I repeat, it's purely an advisory. And you do not say, can you hire me? Or can you get me a job? Because that does put people under pressure.
Brilliant. A great question, Alison. Thanks for sharing that with us today. Now we're on the how do we do it. Now I'm keen that we dip more into Neil's book. If anybody hasn't been listening so far, Neil has got a book. We have mentioned it. We're on commission, Michael. I think every time we mention Neil.
I believe it's on Amazon, isn't it? Only £9.99, whatever.
It is on Amazon. It's an ebook as well, if you like that.
Fantastic. It's available and other bookstores are available as well, everybody who's watching today. So I want to sort of dip into elements of the Reluctant Networker. And I think for one of the questions that the 3 of us were talking about might be useful for people to think about is where, Michael, you've been talking about, 50, 60 people. Actually, that doesn't sound a lot when it comes to a network. And I think some of the time people, when I'm doing career coaching, people ask me this sort of question where they say, well, what if I've got a really small network, or I'm not on LinkedIn, or I've not been on LinkedIn very much? Because that becomes LinkedIn, as you alluded earlier, almost becomes our default setting when we think of network. So what if I have a small network? Neil, perhaps we'll go to you on that one first.
My thoughts on that is, first thing I'd say is it's probably bigger than you think. I'm quite surprised when people have been around quite a while, and then I'm doing a bit of coaching with them and they're on LinkedIn. I see they've only got 220 contacts. I'm like, come on, more people than that. Probably just within your own firm, more people than that. So that's my first sort of challenge. And then, for the ones that you've got, it is, as Michael's just saying, reach out and have those conversations, not putting people under pressure, and ask for the referrals, and they will do it genuinely, because we all, we do want to help each other. So I think start with the people that know you and ask for the referrals, and then your network will grow. And then the other thoughts when I give talks to students, say, all your schools or universities have got alumni groups. They're all on LinkedIn. That's a natural place, and it could be some companies have alumni groups. You've got this common connection because you went to the same school or university or you work there, even if you don't know people. and that's a good place. So I do encourage the students to join the alumni groups on LinkedIn from their places, and then you can see if you're in the group who else is on there, and not everybody's going to be relevant, but there will be somebody who's in a particular sector that you're really interested in, and just the fact that you've been to the same university or wherever from them, they are much more likely to take your message, and then you can set up a call to get some advice.
Brilliant. I'm guessing from that, what we're talking about there is people thinking about their immediate network again, rather than their whole network. Michael, your thoughts on
yes,
having a small network?
I'm going to agree with Neil. So first of all, if you've got a small network, it will be bigger than you think. Remember the 4 sources to your network: people you work with, your clients, your suppliers, what I call professional peers. So if you go through your CV and think about the people you've worked with, or who the clients were, who the suppliers were, I will guarantee you'll come up with at least between 10 and 20 individuals. That's the first thing. Second thing is, if you've got 10 or 20 individuals and you're going to network with them, and the objective is to build your network, ask for 2 referrals. So suddenly your network of 10 becomes a network of 30 because you've got 2 referrals. So you can grow that pretty quickly. And to Neil's last point, and I was at Westminster Business School talking to first year business students. And the whole purpose was to get them ready for when they do start job searching almost in 2 years' time. And Lincoln Coots, our resident LinkedIn expert, gave a really good live. He picked up somebody in the audience who said, I'm Swedish and I'm planning to return to Sweden for working. And I think I'm right in saying he said he's looking to work in the pharmaceutical industry. And if he goes on to Lincoln Live and he asks, which Westminster alumni, somebody who stood at Westminster Business School, was living in Sweden, working in pharmaceutical, 5 names came up. And what he said was, email them, tell them who you are and what you're going to be looking to do. Can we network? Can we connect? And it was a really good example of what Neil was saying, is particularly for students and graduates, using alumni is a great way of building a network.
Brilliant. We've got another question come on to the comments, which I just want to bring on here. Do you think it helps to have something to offer, so it feels more like an exchange of sharing experience? We all have something that we can offer. What are your thoughts? Either one of you. Michael, we'll go with you.
Of course it does. So, I mean, I'm truly blessed being a career coach. It's very rare I can't have a meeting with anybody and not be able to go away from that thinking I can help them. So when you're going into those meetings, it is about thinking about what you can do for them. But I'm also going to say it can be pretty wide. Don't just think in terms of professional box. So, somebody's going on holiday and they're going to a place you've been, you can say, I can recommend a good hotel or a restaurant. Or even locally, being able to provide access to a plumber or an electrician, all builds you brownie points. So you've got to be somewhat creative, but you are looking for things. What is it I know that I can offer that's going to help you?
Brilliant. Now, I'm a little bit conscious of time, so I'm going to bring up one of our last bits here. And Neil, I'll come to you on this one, being as I gave Michael that last question.
Right.
Top tips.
I've got two because they're conscious time. So one last reference, plug in my book. So the last tip is, it says, expect lots of no replies, delays, cancellations, and fruitless meetings. It's not personal. Polite persistence works. So in this world where all our contacts are incredibly busy, they've got jobs, it's not that they don't want to help you. If they don't reply, don't take it personally. Go back to, like Michael saying, if you had a good relationship with them in the past, even if you've had 5 years of nothing and they haven't replied, it's still a good relationship. So you need to be quite resilient, particularly if you're looking for a job and it can be a bit soul destroying. Back to the point about helping other people, if you've got something in a conversation where it isn't all just you asking for help. So that's the first one. Second one, just do it. Okay. I have a lot of people I coach, he's looking for a job and he's just trying to mapping the perfect network, the perfect CV. If you're sitting in your head on your computer, you're not going to find a job or a project. Just get a few contacts, talk to them, they'll refer you, and build it slowly. Don't wait forever to map your perfect network and then go out there and do it.
Brilliant. And before I come to Michael, just show us your book one more time so that everybody can see it there. Fantastic. There are lots
I didn't realise it's like working on ITV. This isn't it?
Yeah, it is fantastic. Yeah, I'm. This is going to be my audition tape for ITV or somewhere like that. I think. Michael, come to you on top tips.
So 3 things. One is this: be systematic. So I'm saying have a network, have it on a spreadsheet, and certainly ensure that you stay in touch with that network. So that's the first thing. The second thing is this: so see network as an opportunity to help people. That's the most important. And the third thing is, because if you're helping people, they will ask you, make them aware of your career aspirations, and not just immediately, but in the long term. If you do that, I'm absolutely certain over time, people will reach out to you and say, do you know there's a vacancy there? I was thinking about you. You might want to apply.
Brilliant. Okay. And just before I end the live stream today for everybody, I just want to give everyone a heads up on our next session, which is on the 10th of December, about writing a standout CV. That'll be our last LinkedIn Live of the year. So it's a good one to finish on, especially those people thinking, right, in the new year, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to look for my next opportunity. So, guys, can I just say a big thank you? It was worth getting the big guns out. You didn't disappoint. It's been great to chat with you today. And I'll close the live stream now. But thanks for tuning in, everybody, or watching on catch up on our different socials. And bye for now.
My pleasure. Thanks, Dave.